It's time for more Manifesting Original Rich Bitch Experiences. Each week, we're talking travel, wellness, and millennial musings with a level of refinement. What level? It fucking depends. I'm your host, Ava Bilkey. Welcome back to the More Pod. This is the podcast's 50th episode, and it's kind of hard to believe. I don't know what it is about the number 50, but for some reason, it just seems monumentous in a way. Monumentous, if that's a word, I hope. You know, it's halfway to 100. It's a big deal. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey. And I was really reflecting over the weekend about this. And also, I just wrapped up a really big website project, which is coming soon. These two sort of big events really had me just in a reflection mode. And I was thinking about my personal growth journey over the last 3 to 5 years. It's just been wild when I think about it. I don't even really recognize myself, my 2019 self, if you will, or even my 2020 self. One of the elements of my personal journey and really growing into who I truly am as a person and living that life, a life that feels like it's truly mine, less tainted by societal expectations or assumptions or shoulds. One of the things that's really helped me arrive to a place where I feel like I'm really embodying who I am is my self love practice. I refer to it as a practice because it very much is. You know, for all of us, self love is something that needs to be worked on an ongoing basis. And personally, I've kind of weaved in and out of moments of really needing to lean into my self love practice. And I've also kind of flowed through moments where it hasn't been as much of a priority because I felt pretty good. But having a really strong foundation of self love is something that I've learned and have sort of proven over the last few years to myself as being the most important foundation for my personal life, for my business, for my relationships with other people. And I wanted to spend some time today capturing what self love is and ways that we can revisit and deepen our self love practice because there are going to be moments where we disconnect. Big life moments happen and they really come in and shake our perception of self or test our self worth. When you inevitably find yourself in a place at some point in your life where you are disconnected from your heart center, I think it's really important to have tools to reconnect yourself and get back to a solid foundation of self love so that you can continue to live your best life. So let's get into it. Starting off with a definition of self love, because I know we hear this term thrown around all the time, and I think it also gets kind of convoluted with self care, right? But self love is, in its most simple form, it's the love of self, obviously. But if we go a little bit deeper, the definition can include regard for one's own well being and happiness. In addition to that, it's the belief that you are valuable and worthy. And really, you have a positive view of yourself and you feel a level of confidence in your place in the world. I love this definition because it is multifaceted, but it really comes down to happiness, confidence, and regard for your own well being. And I think that's something that each of us needs to have in large doses. I think it's important to have a way to quickly tap in and be like, okay, well, where am I at with self love? A tool that I love to use to really kind of check in with myself is by giving myself a self love score. The way in which I do this is just very quickly ask myself, what's my level of self love in this very moment? And the first number intuitively that comes to mind between 1 and 10 is where I'm at. 1 would be you're not doing so hot. 10 would be like, couldn't love myself anymore in this moment. And I think that it's important to let this number just sort of come to you. Once you start overthinking it, you're lying to yourself. And it's also important to not judge the number that comes to you, right? Because say you tap in and you're like, damn, I'm at a 4 today. If you judge yourself for being at a 4, you're just adding fuel to the fire of the core issue here. So it's really important to, 1, not overanalyze this number, this score, but 2, also not to judge the score. So the self-love score is something that I use on a regular basis to just see where I'm at. Once I have that level of information, then I get to make the next best step for me. So if you're looking for a way to just start bringing this topic back to the forefront of your mind, just tap in with a self-love score. Ask yourself, what is my current level of self-love? Get the number, and then go forward with that information to make your next decision. So now that we have the awareness, this is great. When it comes to reconnecting with yourself and establishing a deeper level of self-love, I want to offer up 3 different ways to do this. First one of those being awareness. And by this, I mean quite simply becoming aware of how you are thinking and how you are feeling about yourself. While this sounds really simple, I don't want you to discard it because we spend so much of our lives on autopilot mode where we have eliminated a lot of the thinking and a lot of the feeling to go about our days. And, before we know it, it's like a whole year's gone by and we're like, what happened last year? I don't even know. So I share this because without cultivating a level of awareness around the subject of self-love, it's very easy to ignore it. In order to just draw awareness to self-love, you can ask yourself a series of check-in questions. These check-in questions really bring awareness to your current state of mind, body, and soul. And so you can ask these questions about anything. They are, why am I doing this? First and foremost. How does this make me feel? Does this fuel or drain my energy? That's my favorite question to ask as a human design projector. And does this add or detract from my goals, desires, and direction? I love these questions. Life gets really juicy and interesting when you start digging into this. And to give you an example, it could be about something as simple as meeting up with somebody for happy hour. Maybe you are agreeing to happy hour, but you don't really want to. And you go through this series of questions to arrive at that point. Why am I doing this? Because I feel like if I don't do this, the other person is going to be upset with me. That's not a great reason to do anything. How does it make me feel? It makes me feel frustrated that I'm compromising my time for something I actually don't want to be doing. Does it fuel or drain my energy? It's a drain. I don't want to be there. It's a drain on my energy. And lastly, does it add or detract from my goals, desires, direction? If I'm spending time going to happy hours with people that I really don't feel are worth my energy, that's got to be detracting, right? That's got to be a detractor from what you actually want to be doing because you're spending energy that you could be putting towards something else. So, see what I mean? This gets juicy really fast. Using these check-in questions is a really great way to start bringing awareness to how you're thinking, how you're feeling, and really why you're doing what you're doing. And I found that when I started doing this, I was doing a lot of shit out of people pleasing tendencies. I wasn't actually doing these things for me. And when I was operating out of that place of people pleasing, that was in direct conflict with self-love. When you arrive at this awareness, it's another form of information. Just like the self-love score, having the awareness gives you the information to choose better in the next moment. So if you realize that you don't want to go to happy hour, now you know this. And it's up to you to decline the happy hour. Declining that happy hour is something that, until you get used to saying no and really setting that boundary, at first you might feel like you're not doing the right thing, right? You're like, oh, am I being mean? Like, am I being rude? I couldn't have just sucked it up and gone for an hour. No, declining that happy hour is actually an act of self-love, and it's going to help increase the love that you have for yourself. And over time, all of these small actions really, really add up. So, awareness is truly the first step towards increasing your self love and really reconnecting to yourself. The next way to reconnect yourself and really build your self love is with positive self talk. Now, I learned everything I know about self talk from the absolute queen, Louise Hay. So, if you're unfamiliar with Louise Hay, she was a brilliant woman, really ahead of her time. One of the books that she wrote that really, really kickstarted my own self love journey is called You Can Heal Your Life. In this book, she talks a lot about self criticism and how we truly spend so much time talking negatively to ourselves. And this was really eye opening for me because I've always sort of associated with being a perfectionist and being really hard on myself and being self critical. And so there was a lot of this going on in my head. And it took really working through this book to realize that I was feeding my own mind with tons of negative energy. I mean, self talk is wild when it goes unchecked. And every little criticism is just a detractor of self love. So I want to read you a quote from Louise Hay because I think she says it best. She says, loving the self to me begins with never ever criticizing ourselves for anything. Criticism locks us into the very pattern that we are trying to change. Remember, you have been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens. Ooh, I love that. So essentially, rather than criticizing ourselves through negative self talk, we can start to approve of ourselves with positive self talk. Because again, we create our own realities. What we tell ourselves is what we believe to be true. So why not tell yourself something positive? Why not tell yourself that you love yourself and you're awesome? So similar to the awareness exercise, this is something else that is very eye-opening. And when you start to bring a level of awareness to the things that you tell yourself, it might feel really rough in the beginning. But the best way to really go about this, I found, is to start identifying when I'm telling myself something mean. It could be something small, it could be something big. And when I find myself being self critical, I'll write down what I told myself. And immediately in the next moment, I will rewrite the statement. So I'll turn the self criticism into a positive affirmation. And this has been so incredibly, incredibly life changing for me. I'll give you an example of what this could look like. Say that you are a personal trainer and you're starting your own business and you're really kind of feeling shaky about the whole thing. And you find yourself saying, everyone's a personal trainer. I have nothing new to add. Why should anyone train with me? That is an incredibly negative self criticism. But the practice of telling yourself that is actually feeding the thought. And soon enough, if you say, no one ever wants to work with me, no one ever wants to work with me, guess what's going to happen? Nobody's going to want to work with you because we create our realities. So if you catch yourself saying that, you write it down. The positive affirmation that cancels out that criticism could be, I am an incredible personal trainer. I have a unique perspective, and sharing my perspective with others creates healthier lives. This is just one example of what could be millions of criticisms. But do you see what I mean by catching it, catching yourself saying something negative, actually writing it down, and then going in and writing something that debunks that, right? So, writing yourself a positive affirmation. I'll give you a personal example as well to really drive this home. So, growing up, I have had artists on both sides of my family. My grandmother on my mom's side is a really great watercolor painter. And my grandmother on my dad's side was super crafty. She made all these cool crochet things. My dad is an oil painter. And growing up, seeing all this creativity, I loved it. But I looked at myself and my skills didn't really match their creative skills, if that makes sense. Like I was really creative and good at other things, like giving myself a perfect manicure or coming up with really cool, crazy ideas. But for so long, I told myself that I wasn't creative. For years, I told myself I wasn't creative. And it really impacted that view of myself. I believed that I wasn't creative. So, that process of telling myself that I wasn't creative for so many years really impacted my creative work. I didn't write as much, I didn't share all the creative ideas that I did have. And I really dulled my own gifts in a way. And a few years ago, I started journaling the affirmation, I am creative. I am creative. And every morning, it's something that I affirm multiple times. It sounds so simple, and to some of you, it might even sound silly, but you know what? I am creative. And I think that I'm in a much healthier place with my own creativity. I think I'm channeling it more. I'm really infusing it into my work and my life. And I share this with you because we are all creative. We are all inherently creative. But if you tell yourself you're not, guess what? You're not. So, watching and tracking your thought patterns and your criticisms and what you tell yourself is a really powerful way to start, first of all, being nicer to yourself. And second of all, really strengthening your connection to self, coming back to heart center, and increasing your self love. So, the third way to reconnect yourself and increase your self love is through fundamental self care. What I mean by fundamental self care are the things that we require to really flourish as human beings. As much as I love having a wine night and watching a movie on Netflix and calling it self care, that's not exactly what I'm thinking about here. When it comes to flourishing as a human being, these are really our core essential needs: our hydration, nutrition, exercise, community, time outside in nature. These are the areas of self care that I would consider fundamental. And when you really start tapping into fundamental self care, again, it just strengthens you so much. And these are all acts of self love. A really great way to strengthen your love of self is to pick one of these categories, right? Just one at a time, and commit to a new personal goal. So maybe you are chronically dehydrated and you know that you would feel better if you drank a little bit more water. Maybe you set yourself a new hydration goal. And over time, you work up to drinking a gallon of water a day. Maybe that's your goal. This is an act of self love. Taking the time every single day to hydrate your body, hydrate your brain. It might all sound like really basic and really simple, but it makes a big difference. I know my personal fundamental self care goal at the moment is around exercise. I've found myself in a place where I'm walking a lot less than I walked last year. And thanks to the Apple Health app, I'm aware of this. But last year, I was living in London and walking 10 to 15,000 steps a day. And I felt really good doing that. And something as simple as walking was actually keeping me fit. Like the jeans were buttoning. I was feeling good. Right now, I'm living in Minneapolis and I have a car. And so my walking is like minimal. And so I made a new goal to focus on this part of exercise and to make it a goal to walk 3 times a week. I'm currently working up to it, but I already feel better. I know that each time I do put on my tennies, leave the house, go on my walk around the lake, I'm doing something really good for myself and I'm showing myself love. So pick something, anything that really calls to you, hold yourself accountable. And I think what you'll find is that you have a renewed respect for yourself and you'll have renewed confidence. And really, these are some of the awesome side effects of strengthening your self love. So, those are 3 ways that I love to reconnect with myself when I feel myself needing to recommit to my self love practice. And come to these first the next time you feel like you really need to dive back into your self love practice. Start with a self love score, check in, ask yourself some of those awareness questions, make better choices based off of that. Observe your self talk and really start adapting that to being more positive, more loving, and focusing on your fundamental self care to take care of your body and your mind. These 3 things, although they seem fairly simple, I think that's the thing. It's like self love doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. So, coming back to these 3 areas to really reconnect have done wonders for me. And I hope that you'll try on 1 or 2 of these as well. I also want to share some tips for success because in a vacuum, this is all easy. But in our day to day lives, sometimes it can be hard to remember to do these things or to really prioritize ourselves the way that we should. So, I want to share a few little tips for success that have really helped me commit to this self love practice. First and foremost, I love to use physical reminders. And what I mean by physical reminders are things that you can have in your space, in your home, or on your body that literally remind you to tend to your self love practice. One of these physical reminders for me is I have a huge chunk of rose quartz. So, rose quartz is the stone of love and specifically self love. So, I kid you not, it's probably weighs like 2 pounds. I have a giant chunk of rose quartz that sits in my bedroom. And every time I look at it, It's a physical reminder of my desire to build and feed and maintain a really solid foundation of self love. Rose quartz is awesome. Like, you don't have to get a 2-pound chunk of rock. You could get a really small stone and keep it in your pocket, carry it with you, set it on your desk. But I love, 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 love that physical reminder. Another example of a physical reminder, something that you could do connected to positive self talk, is writing your positive affirmations on Post-it notes and sticking them around. Maybe you have one on the mirror that says, I am beautiful. Maybe you have one on the mirror that says, I love you. Writing out these positive thoughts and placing them around your home is another really amazing physical reminder of dedicating yourself to this practice. If you want to bring in a physical reminder for one of your self-care goals, something like a tracking system can be really helpful. I've started a Post-it note every week for my walks. So my goal is to walk 3 days a week. I tally every time I do a walk, and ideally, there's 3 tallies there at the end of the week. But having this physical visual reminder is so helpful because out of sight, out of mind, no lies told there. It's very easy for a whole week to go by and be like, oh shit, I was going to do that goal. I was going to work on that one thing. I was going to really lean into my self-love practice. Physical reminders are key to actually doing this. Another tip for success is to call in additional resources. It could be a book. I mentioned earlier the book by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. That's an incredible resource. Something else I read recently that has a great section on self-love is The 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty. So looking for additional resources that you can really dive into. Maybe it's Atomic Habits. I mean, there are so many books that are available to help you on this journey. And you could also look at courses as a resource. I bake a full section of self-love into my social media courses because I truly believe that self-love is foundational to everything. It doesn't matter if we're talking about buying a home or building a personal brand on social media. Without self-love, it's really hard to convince anyone of anything you don't believe. So diving into an additional resource is never a bad idea. And lastly, one of the most important things here in really having success, reconnecting to yourself, is realizing that the self-love journey is not linear. It's not like you work on this once and you're good. I wish, right? This is something that is cyclical. It's going to come around time and time and time again. You will see moments that will attempt to shake your self perspective and call into question your self love. This is just a natural part of life. This is a reality. But I think realizing that this practice is cyclical takes some of that pressure off. And building up a toolbox with things like the self love score and awareness and positive self talk and fundamental self care, this is a really great way to maybe metabolize some of those downswing moments a bit quicker and get back to a really strong self love foundation. So, there we have it. 3 ways to reconnect with yourself and strengthen your self love. Self love has been one of the most, if not the most important element in my personal journey and also the journey in my business over the last several years. And so I'm really grateful that I found these tools and these practices when I did, because without a doubt, strengthening my own self love and really building up my confidence has gotten me to where I am today. And I share this with you as a loving reminder that self love is the foundation to everything in life. And I hope that the next time you feel like you need a little extra love and support, you feel like you can reference these tools. If you know somebody that could use them, I hope you share this episode, pass it along. And at the end of the day, just know that you can do anything. Having love for yourself is truly the first step to getting there. So, with that, let's transition into this week's Love It or Leave It. What I'm loving this week is outsourcing. I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that one of the things that I was reflecting on, or my reflection, if you will, for this journey was prompted by completing a really big website project. And this website project is something that I hired professional designers for. And this is actually the first time in my business that I've hired a web designer. Before that, I've just been DIY, knowing enough to be dangerous in Squarespace. And it's been fine. But having a professionally designed website is something I've wanted for so long. I'm finally at the place where I was able to make that investment for myself. And it was just a reminder that outsourcing is the vibe. If you have the means to hire a professional, an expert to help you do something, it's the best. It's going to be hard to go back. It's going to be hard to go back to not outsourcing. It saved me so much time and so much stress and so much energy, right? Like me building my own website is an energy drain. An energy drain. So actually, I'm realizing that outsourcing work is an act of self-love. We love this. So if you're at a place where you've been considering bringing in expertise of any type to help you solve a problem and you have the means to do so, I highly recommend it. Outsourcing the things that you're not great at is a game changer. We love it. What I'm not loving this week, though, is establishments that do not take vibes into consideration. It's not enough to just be a restaurant that offers great food. Today, you have to be a restaurant that offers great food, has friendly staff members, and also has a dope environment. Like, you have to set the vibe. Over the weekend, I went to this wine and cheese shop that I used to love. So at this wine shop, you can go in and purchase a bottle of wine, any bottle you want. And at the cheese shop next door, they'll actually give you glassware if you want to consume the wine on premises. You can order a cheese board, wine, there's some other food items there, and the food's really good. And it used to be that they had tables on their south facing side of the building. And there were beautiful planters. The sidewalk was in the sun. So it was just like this really nice summer vibe. And it was a great little spot to sit and enjoy some cheese and wine. They have since remodeled since the last time I did this. And the new space that they have remodeled is not the vibe. I'm sorry to report. They put tables in a different new patio area, but the patio is surrounded by the parking lot on one side, the building's entrance ramp on one side, which is very busy, a street on the other side, and then just backs up to brick on the fourth side. So nothing about sitting in this particular spot is enjoyable. Between the cars in the lot, people walking in and out with their cases of alcohol, the street on the other side, like I watched someone get into a car accident, it was just not the vibe. And now I don't think I want to do that again. I think they need a vibes consultant, somebody that can come in this remodel or in this construction process and be like, no, we need to change this up. because it's going to ruin the vibe. Anyways, I was very disappointed. Vibes are everything. And it's not enough to just have, like I said, good food at a restaurant or good wine selection at a wine shop. Like, you've got to really consider the whole experience. And I think that places that do consider this experience, those are our favorite places. I'm leaving places that don't consider the vibe. So there you have it. Self-love, 3 ways to reconnect and increase your self-love. We're loving outsourcing projects to experts. We're leaving behind establishments that don't consider the vibe. And that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. I hope that you're taking care. I hope that you're loving on yourself. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review, a rating, 5 stars. I appreciate it. And thanks for listening. 50 episodes. Here's to the next 50. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next week. Listen to the More Pod every Wednesday as I share the things that make me more me and discover a thing or two to make you more you.